Ignition breathalyzers are supposed to prevent convicted drunk drivers from starting their cars if they've had too much to drink.
But the I-Team found more than 20,000 Wisconsin drivers required to install those devices never did. And that's not all. Investigative reporter Eric Ross uncovered. Eric.
Good evening. Our month-long investigation found systemic problems giving drunk drivers a free pass to injure others and in one case kill an innocent man. Paula Patoka, her husband Roger, and two children were on their way to Shawano for a weekend vacation on the lake back in August, but their vacation ended before it began. Roger was riding on his beloved motorcycle. Paula and the kids were following behind in an SUV. They were 10 minutes away from the lake when a drunk driver slammed into them head-on.
It was so loud and so hard and so fast.
Police say Tony Garvey crossed over the center line, striking Roger before plowing into Paula and their kids.
We just screamed up to the sky and held each other and said, please don't take him.
Paramedics rushed Roger to the hospital, but it was too late.
The sheriff came in and he nodded to me like this, and I knew that he was dead.
A life taken way too soon by a drunk driver who had no business being on the road that night. Toxicology reports showed Garvey was 3 times over the legal driving limit. The I-Team discovered in 2012 he was convicted of his 4th OWI. He was also ticketed for not installing an ignition interlock breathalyzer. A judge sentenced Garvey to 14 months in prison, but he served less than a year and was back on the streets.
4 DUIs in 5 years. 4 DUIs in 5 years. Killing Roger would have been his 5th DUI. There's something wrong here. The punishment is not working.
In 2009, Wisconsin passed a law requiring all repeat drunk drivers and first-time offenders with a blood alcohol level of 0.15 or higher to install an ignition interlock device, also known as an IID. But numbers from the DOT show across the state, only about 56% of people installed those devices. Is anybody following up to ensure that people who have been ordered by a judge to install an IID physically have an IID in their car?
DMV does not. I cannot speak for law enforcement.
Law enforcement agencies told us they don't monitor for compliance and referred us to the courts. But they don't monitor for compliance either. Instead, county clerks tossed us right back to law enforcement and ultimately the DOT for answers.
The judge is following the law, putting the requirement there, but there's not a follow-up to see that they're actually being compliant.
State Senator Van Wangard is proposing new legislation to make it a criminal offense for a convicted drunk driver to operate any car without an IID. Right now, it's only a misdemeanor ticket with no jail time.
And that's just not acceptable.
Until we make that stop, get that driver's license and identify that person, we have no idea of the vehicles passing by right now who's supposed to have one.
The DOT says an officer's mobile computer is supposed to notify them if the driver they pulled over is required to have an IID.
We get that update every night from courts, and as soon as it's on our computer system, that's immediately available to law enforcement to see.
But that's not what we found in one case. John Prisbilla was pulled over in 2014 for his 10th OWI. The Adams County deputy who made the traffic stop said when he ran Prisbilla's name, there was not an alert indicating Prisbilla needed an IID, even though a judge clearly ordered he needed to install one. Prisbilla was intoxicated that night, but blamed it on beer-battered fish he had eaten earlier in the day. The jury didn't buy his fishy defense and was sentenced last week to 7 years in prison. Fortunately, Prisbilla got caught before he could hurt anyone. But it's too late in Paula's case, where there will be no justice, no trial, no apology, because the man who killed her husband also lost his life that night. All Paula has now to remember her husband with are pictures and small pieces of the motorcycle he was riding. Do you feel Wisconsin's OWI laws are too lenient?
Yes, they are too lenient. Every other state has got it together. What's it gonna take? What's it gonna take? More dead people to change the law?
Now, in April, Governor Scott Walker signed 2 bills, the first making a 4th OWI arrest a felony, regardless of when the other 3 incidents occurred. The second gives judges the power to order repeat OWI offenders to get tested at a facility twice a day for alcohol. George and Carol.
Important report. Thank you, Eric.